Welcome to a brand new edition of NFL Power Rankings. It is presented by Energizer. Mike Amble with the man who's got the toughest job in the building, or in Chicago, because that's where he's based. Eric at home. He's got to rank all 32 teams, and yes, he does that every single week. We bring you some of the hits, the entire article on NFL.com. If you're watching us right now, you can scan the QR code for a little fast track to get there. Eric, it's kind of a buzzkill. I hate to start with injuries, but my God, I think the best question to ask right now is who is healthy in the NFL?
Yeah, and it's affecting the rankings, Mike. I mean, every single week I asked, all right, did they win or lose, and who got hurt? Really, that's the biggest thing, especially quarterbacks and wide receivers. You know, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin in Tampa. You know, Watson obviously is going down for Cleveland, and you know, the rookie of the year favorite for Washington too. We might not have the Caleb Williams showdown we were hoping this week with the Bears. So yeah, a lot of movement, and the injuries certainly had a big impact.
Yeah, we'll trickle in some of the news throughout the course of this show, but let's get to the rankings. And not a huge surprise, but they did get back up to the top spot. The Kansas City Chiefs, the only unbeaten squad in the NFL. At number 2, the Ravens dealing. How about at number 3, the Lions? No Aiden Hutchinson. Now tied for first with Minnesota in the division. Speaking of the Vikings, they actually dropped 3 spots to number 4. At number 5, Josh Allen. Still no interceptions on the year. Packers, a nail biter with Houston. They sit in the 6th spot, as Eric made reference to. The Commanders, Jaden Daniels, week to week now with the rib injury. Doesn't matter. Marcus Mariota, leading the Commanders to 40 points. And at number 8, it is the Houston Texans, which I think deserves an interesting conversation, which we will have in just a bit. Time for the team of the week. It is presented by Truist. I understand why the Kansas City Chiefs are number 1 in your rankings. Makes sense to me. But I ask you this as I'm watching these games unfold. Are they the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, you know, when Rashee Rice got hurt, I opened the door for them to not be the best team in the NFL. You know, the accumulation of injuries, the way they were winning games, and that's continued. But the winning part has also continued too, Mike. And so I don't want to overlook that. And if this was a team that had come out of nowhere this season and was 6-0, maybe more like the Minnesota Vikings had they won Sunday, I might have been considering another team here like the Ravens, like the Lions in the number 1 spot. But this Chiefs team has such a body of work over recent years, and they've kind of reinvented themselves. You know, you've got Kareem Hunt back running like Derrick Henry in his prime here. That was a huge factor Sunday. Didn't need the huge game from Patrick Mahomes. He had a couple of moments where he obviously shined as a runner, made enough plays, and that defense did the job. So, you know, when I look at a team like the Niners going head against the Chiefs, they're a team that can't afford a bad quarterback production game right now. The Chiefs can. That's why I still have them at number 1. I don't know if the Ravens, for instance, could survive a bad quarterback game from Lamar Jackson and still win against a quality opponent.
Derrick Henry on line number 1 for you, because the way the King is playing, maybe there's an argument, but I understand your point here because the Baltimore Ravens now sit at number 2. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdown passes, 5 incompletions. Derrick Henry runs for 169 yards. They've now won 5 consecutive games. That's sort of the theme here. This is number 5. But Eric, I got to tell you, man, like, this is the Ravens team that I thought we were going to see at the start of the year. They lost those 2 first games. They were tight nail biters. But at the end of the day, I think you can make an argument Baltimore's the best team in the NFL.
I think it's absolutely there. I wrote a line in my piece this week. I said I strongly considered it when they were sort of putting the hurt down on Tampa Bay in the second half. They're up big, did kind of ease up late, did have some ugly moments early in this game. But look, I mean, everything after that touchdown came off the board in the first quarter there, they dominated the football game, at least, and put it away a big enough margin. Hill was huge. Lamar Jackson had a great night. And the reports of Mark Andrews' demise are a little bit exaggerated. I think he had a great game as well. So toughest offense right now to deal with. And if you can consistently outrush your opponent by 100 or more yards, as they've done in every single game this year, Mike, I think you have an edge, and that's why Derrick Henry right now is the best closer in the NFL. Look at him just put this team away, carry him on his back, and several big runs.
Yeah, explosive run after explosive run, watching the King out on the football field. The only thing that I would throw out there is if we get back to an AFC championship game and it's Kansas City and Baltimore, because of the Derrick Henry factor, maybe that thing plays out different. I don't even know if this team has even reached the peak of their offensive powers. I think they're still trying to figure it out. The Lions, you know, a week ago, Eric, on this show, we were talking about Aiden Hutchinson. What would the fallout be? Really positive here. Look, they win a game, and offensively, I think, is there a quarterback playing more efficient ball than Jared Goff?
Yeah, I think he's got to be in the MVP discussion, at least at this point, especially after the Hutchinson injury. They're going to count on him more. And, some absolutely beautiful throws on Sunday. They get off to a little bit of a tough start on both sides of the ball. Goff just kind of calmly leads them back. Jahmyr Gibbs was terrific. We know how good that offensive line is. Jameson Williams suspension, got to factor that in. Sam Laporte has been a little bit quiet. Montgomery's a little banged up. He had a big fumble on Sunday too, but it just seems like whatever problems come their way, they find their way to get out of it. They find solutions from within, and they have the mental and physical toughness that's up there amongst any other team in the league. Right up there with the Chiefs, right up there with the Ravens, etc. The Vikings played a very good game. I mean, they were set to win this thing, and Detroit pulled it out at the end. So both teams, I thought, acquitted themselves well. Detroit's toughness, though, just so impressive.
Yeah, and the Vikings are still a team, even despite the loss. I know there were some questions. Hey, how much are you buying on this squad? You and I both buying on Minnesota. Still a really good football team. One other note on Jared Goff, because I think it's just pretty remarkable. 83.5 completion percentage over his last 4 games. That's the highest completion percentage over any 4-game span since 1950. You watch this team play. The ball does not hit the ground. I mean, it is awesome to watch this team's offense, and they get Tennessee this coming week. Now, it is time for Future Champions presented by FanDuel. You take a look at the AFC East divisional odds, and not a huge surprise. The Buffalo Bills still the favorite. Tua's on the mend. We'll talk Dolphins in just a bit here. The New York Jets still looming. Both of those teams equal odds at plus 1,200 to go and win this division, and the Patriots have a lot of issues here, certainly in that last spot, which is not a huge surprise. What's the upside in your mind from a Buffalo perspective with Amari Cooper now in the fold?
Yeah, we really saw it in the second half of that game on Sunday. The first half, I mean, he had one target. It was a drop pass, an easy out route, and you thought, oh boy, he's not settling in quite the way we'd hope. But the second half really turned the page, had the touchdown on that post route, on that slant, had a nice sideline run after that. Clearly helped stretch the field. And it was funny because he and Keon Coleman weren't on the field together a ton, but Coleman also had his biggest game of the season, 4 catches, 125 yards. So just adding more explosiveness to this team right now, I think is going to be, make them even more dangerous. Now, obviously, they're a team that can be in long down and distance situations. Josh Allen can pull out miracles, but boy, if they can stay on schedule and getting second and thirds and stuff like that, how dangerous is a guy like Amari Cooper going to be with this team? They already have Dalton Kincaid, great young tight end. We've seen Dawson Knox come on. James Cook's a weapon too. I think this can help kind of stretch the field on the outside, but also down the middle quite a bit as well. And we saw the fruits of it the last 30 minutes of that game when they came back and kind of steamrolled the Titans.
Yeah, in my mind, Eric, I think the addition of Amari Cooper thrust them legitimately into that conversation of one of the top 2 or 3 teams, not only in the NFL, but certainly in the AFC. This is going to be a tough matchup on the road against Seattle. We said this earlier this season. We're going to learn a lot about Buffalo in some of these road games. They lost at Houston, lost at Baltimore. Can they get it done against Seattle? The Packers are a team, and they sit in that 6th position for you. They move up the 1 spot with a win here against that Houston squad. I don't know what to make of this team. They're overcoming some turnovers here by Jordan Love. And I love Jordan's game, and he comes up big in some of these big moments. But is that in the back of your mind while you're doing some of these rankings that maybe the Packers you're hedging just a little bit?
A little, but I still think they're a Super Bowl contender at this point, right? I mean, the big turnover streak on defense ended. Love did have the first 2 interceptions in the first half there. It was sort of a give and take first half. He did settle down a little bit, had some nice throws in that last drive. Romeo Doubs came up big with a couple grabs. But yeah, you'd like to obviously see him cut down on those. He and Patrick Mahomes tied for the league lead right now with 8 picks apiece. So obviously the comparisons to Favre have been made. We know that's a pretty good thing. Brett Favre won a lot of football games up there, but there is that sort of high variance quality about this offense where they can look really, really good, and they can also let you down by giving the ball up. So I think it makes them dangerous. We've seen them go on the road. We've seen them have offensive performances that are spectacular, and I think there's been measurable growth on defense. And Mike, they may have a kicker. Brandon McManus made all 4 of his tries, 1 field goal at the end of the game. That has been a big issue for a long time in Green Bay. Folks up there are very happy.
And you get to do a little Lambeau leap at the end of the game, which I'm sure McManus is one of those moments that I know he is never going to forget. Hey, real quick here, because I mentioned the Houston Texans, and we're talking obviously about the Packers. I was hanging with David Carr last night getting ready for our Monday night post-game show on NFL Network, and I brought up Stroud's name. I don't want to call it a sophomore slump because that's not what this is, but it feels like at times he played better in his rookie campaign. 86 passing yards. What do you make of what you saw from him?
Pass protection. Biggest thing I took away from that game. You know, the Packers were kind of toying with them. Look at all the guys up on the line on this play. Some drop out. That's because earlier in the game, they were successful getting home with the blitzes. So they confused Stroud. They confused the offensive line. They put Bobby Slowick, the play caller, in some tough spots there. So I think that's a huge part of it. It felt like a bigger deal the first 3-4 games of the year than it had recently, but it showed up again Sunday. And again, no Nico Collins. There's only so much Joe Mixon can do. He missed a big chunk of the season earlier as well. So I would focus on the offensive line. And right, CJ hasn't quite played up to that same level, but if he gets the protection, maybe it's a different answer then.
Yeah, once again, still feel really optimistic about Houston's chances to really make a run here, but just something that kind of popped up, I think, when we were all watching the game. All right, just getting underway here on NFL Power Rankings, presented by Energizer. Let's keep in mind, Russell Wilson making his season debut, season-high 37 points, why the AFC just got put on notice. Back here on Power Rankings, Mike Yam and Eric Edholm with you, the complete analysis of every single team on NFL.com. But we pick things up with the number 9 team, the Steelers. We'll talk about Russ's debut in just a moment. Saquon Barkley haunting the G-Men. It's the Eagles at 10. 11, it's the Bears. At 12, the Broncos dominate in New Orleans and Sean Payton's return. 13, the Buccaneers dealing with a slew of injuries, which we'll get to. At 14, the Seahawks, they snapped a 3-game slide with a win against Atlanta. The Falcons just behind them at 15. Some issues right now offensively for the squad after they have come on like gangbusters. And at 16, it's the San Francisco 49ers. Speaking of injuries at that wide receiver spot, another conversation we will have. But we will start with Russell Wilson in his debut. 37 points, season high. I was a little on the fence. Why go with Russ? Why not just roll with Justin Fields? Do they find another level the rest of the season with the play that you saw this past week from Russell Wilson?
Yeah, pretty impressive stuff from Mike Tomlin, at least after one game, right? They were in an election season, and Russ wasn't polling very well. You know what I mean? People were questioning the decision. Why don't you stick with Justin? He's been getting it done. They've been winning. Look, Mike had a number, the internal numbers, I should say, the really good numbers. He knew what was going on, and even after that 2-for-8 start, I think, he felt like this offense was going to hit its groove. It did. A lot of short passes, some deep shots as well, and just kind of toyed with that defense and really made a difference. Got Pickens involved, got Freiermuth involved, and the run game suddenly opened up too. And Mike, when they got close to the end zone, it looked like a Justin Fields-like cameo appearance moment. Just didn't happen. There was no Fields. This was all Wilson. I think he's the guy from this point on. We'll see what Fields' story in Pittsburgh is after this, but I think he's going to go until the wheels come off at this point.
Yeah. Eric, I know you got kids. You go to the amusement park. You know that little game machine that's got the claw and it like drops down and you get like the teddy bear or whatever? I never used to get that. The real life version of that is George Pickens. Some of the grabs, I mean, his hands, it's remarkable. So I'm with you on the Steelers, who've been kind of hovering around this 9-10 area. We see if they find another notch up. The Eagles, they actually move up a couple spots, 2 spots to be specific, to number 10. Not surprised here. I mean, Saquon, 176 yards. This was the performance we expected to see against his old squad.
There was no chance he would be a no-show at MetLife Stadium against his former team. And look, he tapped out after 3 quarters. He could have gone for that career high in yards. Right. Certainly it was the most he'd ever had in that stadium, which had to sting for Giants fans. Right, Mike? I'm just saying. I'm sorry, but
yeah.
On a day when, really not a whole lot was going well for the Eagles. I know that touchdown pass to A.J. Brown was terrific, maybe the best throw of Jalen Hurts' season. It was really all about Barkley and all about how that Eagles defense really hunted Daniel Jones, knocked him out of the game. They went to Drew Lock late. And, the Eagles are a tough team to figure out, but when they have Barkley rolling, it really is, you can understand why they paid the money for him this offseason. And he's clearly made a big impact on this team.
Yeah, big-time matchup looming for this Eagle squad against a Cincinnati squad that I've been defending here on this show for a significant period of time. Time for Power Movers. It's presented by Energizer. Broncos moving up 4 spots to number 12. I'm not going to lie to you, all right? Like, if you would have told me a couple weeks ago we'd be talking about the Denver Broncos team sitting at number 12, I would have been surprised. Sell me on this.
Yeah, no, I've had to kind of sell myself too. Bears, Broncos, other teams that I had 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 spots below. I think most of it has been, hey, they've been doing pretty well, and the teams above them have been losing. Right now, the middle class is a little bit jumbled, but they're making it work with Bo Nix. He's not been perfect, but he's been effective moving the chains with his legs. He can work out of slumps within games. The run game has been efficient. And that defense, too. Cody Barton with a huge game last Thursday in New Orleans. I mean, I didn't think Sean Payton would go in there and lead an offensive showdown, but you know, they came out with a big defensive win, and that was the statement they wanted to make. And so, you know, this team is interesting. I don't know what their ceiling is. I don't know if we're talking about a true top 10 type of team, but they're right on the cusp right now, and I think a lot of that has to do with how they played in recent games.
Yeah, good coaching job by Sean Payton. It helps, obviously. Bo Nix is having some really good moments on the football field. At number 13, the Buccaneers. They actually dropped 4 spots here. I think this is a sign of things to come for this team. We know the news. Chris Godwin is out because of a dislocated ankle. Mike Evans goes down with a hamstring injury. I don't know where this offense goes without arguably the 2 of the best wide receivers that we have in the league.
I agree. You know, when you saw Evans drop that touchdown pass, that was the play where he hurt his hamstring or re-injured it, whatever you want to say. After that, Baker Mayfield looked lost at times. It took him a couple quarters to kind of find his rhythm again. By that point, the game was out of hand. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the Godwin thing happened late in the game, but the red zone pick, the interception after that, Mayfield had a tough outing out there. Some of it was protection, but I definitely think missing his top guy and eventually now top 2 guys really hurt. Cade Otton had a big game. Yeah. Jalen McMillan is a nice rookie. You know, there's 3 different options in the backfield they can turn to, hand the ball off to. But I'm with you, Mike. If Evans is out for any significant period of time, along with Godwin, even in this division, which remains open, and there is a path to winning another division crown in a home playoff game, I'm having a hard time seeing it right now. And as well as Mayfield had played coming into to Monday night.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I feel bad because this is a squad that looked like they were the best team, you know, maybe in that division. But I think some of those other squads, their eyes just kind of opening up very wide with this opportunity. Speaking of injuries, the Niners dealing with a lot of them. Brandon Ayuk gets a huge deal, you know, 4 years, $120 million deal. Kind of offseason. I'll use air quotes around that because it went up to the wire here. Gets hurt, done for the season. And Deebo Samuel, also, he started this game, played 4 snaps, had to leave, pneumonia. Ian Rappaport's reporting, actually had to go to the hospital, fluid in his lungs, no timetable on his return. The Niners dropped 2 spots here. This couldn't have gone worse for San Francisco. I mean, Christian McCaffrey hasn't even hit the field yet. I still want to be optimistic about this team. I just don't know where the production's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, Deebo, I think, will be back at some point, but he's an annual injury risk. Ayuk out of the picture, as you said. Ricky Pearsall now has 1 game under his belt. Juwan Jennings still a toss-up guy as well. You know, as well as Kittle has played the last few games, you know, and the hope of McCaffrey coming back at some point. You have all these issues. You have defensive problems as well. They can't seem to go a game without some kind of special teams miscue. And they just lost to a team that has tormented them and kind of dominated them. I know it's a non-conference game and all that, but this had to be a pretty big one going into that game. And, you know, they sort of hit an emotional bottom of sorts, but we also know how good Kyle Shanahan teams are in November, December. So I'm still not completely giving up hope, but I hear you, man. It's time to sound the alarm bells a little bit.
Hey, in the Bay Area, they had this game circled and an opportunity to make a statement, you know, sitting at 500 coming into this game where, hey, like, no, we're still legit. We can handle business, and we've had some losing streaks before, and we figure it out. This is what I think every fan wanted to see. It's hard to get it done, though, without Ayuk and Deebo. Meanwhile, there's more to come here on NFL Power Rankings. The Jets, big splash. They bring in Devontae. What does it mean? A loss and more turnovers. We put into focus Gang Green next. Back here on Power Rankings, teams 17 through 24. The Chargers, 5 field goals in a Monday Night Football loss to Arizona. At number 18, it's the Colts. Good news, Anthony Richardson didn't throw a pick, and they actually scored a win. I will take that. At number 19, it's the Cowboys. 20, Cincinnati, they've won 3 out of 4. Eric, it's time to move them up a little bit higher. At 21, it is the Cardinals, who we'll talk about in just a moment. At 22, it's the Jets, and this has been a little bit of a tough go the last couple of weeks. The 23rd ranked team is the Rams, and the 24th ranked squad is the Saints. All right, we don't get to always love up Arizona. They move up 3 spots for you. Kyler's doing his thing. James Conner's running over dudes. I'll take this as a win. I don't know what it's going to look like at the end of the year, but this looks like a better football team than the one that I saw a year ago.
Yeah, what really struck me early in Monday night's second game was how the 2 big plays in the first quarter. Starling Thomas knocking the ball out for a touchback the other way. It looked like it was going to be a Chargers touchdown. And then you mentioned Conner, the wily old Badger, man. He was great running the football, but he also made a crucial knockout of an interception to help give the ball back to the Cardinals. So who knows what happens. I think those 2 plays really kind of set the tone for the night. Situational awareness, toughness, hustle, it was all there. And they kind of out-Harbaugh'd the Harbaughs last night or Monday night. So really an impressive game with physical power and mental toughness. Not that much explosiveness outside of Murray's run, but there's something about this team. I love the way they play. They throw it all out there every single time. And in the NFC West, anything is possible, Mike.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, we ran his post-game press conference on NFL Network, got executed in the red zone. He was hammering home that point. The Jets, last 7 drives in the loss, 2 interceptions, a missed field goal, and a turnover on downs. I know it's Davante Adams. I know they're making news. And look, I don't blame any of this on Davante. He's been there for like 2 minutes here. But the Jets, dude, are we going to win some games here?
Yeah, they've got to figure this thing out pretty quickly and make it all mesh together, right? We saw a lot of Davante Adams. His biggest play, though, in the game was making a tackle after an interception, saving a touchdown, at least briefly here. And when Rodgers with this pick, I think, was probably on him. The second one, definitely not on him. That was Garrett Wilson. Ball bosses off his chest and into the hands of Beanie Bishop Jr. So, it's plays like that look like they should be a positive for the Jets, end up a negative. That's been too common this season, whether it's, the wide receivers, the offensive line, penalties and pressures allowed, and even the defense too, Mike. I thought this was a top 10 unit. I know there's injuries. I know there's setbacks, but this is not a group that's is playing up to its potential right now.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers right now, 6 interceptions over his last 3 games. No bueno. All right, teams ranked 25 through 32. The Dolphins, there's some hope on the way, which we'll get to in a moment. The Giants at 26, no comment from me. At 27, the Jags, nice to see them. They had a win in London. The Raiders sitting at 28, kind of an ugly performance. The 29th ranked team, the Titans, continue to struggle 1-5 to get Detroit next. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson done, his Browns at 30. 31, it's the Patriots, a long way to go, and I have no idea what to make of the 32nd ranked team, the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if it necessarily matters anymore who's playing quarterback for them this season. Let's go positive here. Miami Dolphins, Tua is knocking on the door. Expect to see him out there. I think maybe the Fins can make a run here.
Yeah, whether it's this weekend or next, the big game against the Bills, the team that knocked him out earlier in the season, they have to see an offensive improvement. I mean, he would offer big hope, no question about it. They just can't have games where Tyreek Hill doesn't see a target until the third quarter. They can't have games where Jalen Waddle isn't seeing a catch until the fourth quarter. That's the biggest problem, the lack of explosiveness. What happened to Devin Achane? All these big playmakers they haven't been able to use because of the backup quarterback situation. But then, how is Tua? Is he ready to go? Is the concussion still an issue? Those are big lingering questions, so I can't really vault him up too much till we have more evidence of him being able to go out there and stay healthy.
The tough thing about this is every year it feels like we're trying to find another team that can dethrone the Buffalo Bills. And this season, it looked like maybe Miami could have been that squad. I'm not saying it can't happen. They got to go on an epic run, and they need their quarterback back in the lineup and healthy out on the football field. Eric, you're the best man. Cannot wait to do this again with you next week. Thanks for watching and listening to Power Rankings.